So we'll start right away with the first speaker, who is Akira Tsukahara-san, who's a curator of the Kobe Museum. The subject is Indian and Nanban art with a focus on St. Francis Xavier and Namban screens. Professor Akira Tsukahara is a curator at the Kobe City Museum since 1991. His main research theme is the influence of Western painting on early modern Japanese art, and he was involved in the composition of the permanent exhibition St. Francis Xavier, newly installed in this museum in 2019. As most of us know, when you talk of Nanban, you think of the interaction, the initial interaction between Japan, fairly closed society, and really the foreigners, mainly from the Western world. But there was a very strong India link because of the Jesuits and the other evangelists who went from the Western world in the early years, and particularly St. Francis Xavier and his connection with Goa. So I will not take more time, but over to you, Akira-san. We look forward to hearing your presentation.
Thank you for the invitation for this conference. My name is Akira Tsukahara, Kobe City Museum. May I begin my presentation? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Sorry, may I please request you to turn your camera on?
Sorry, my camera doesn't work so far.
Oh, I see.
I'm so sorry. But I think I can share my PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Kobe City Museum, to which I belong, is widely known for the collection of Nanban art. The two representative works, the portrait of St. Francis Xavier and the Nanban screens by Kano, which I will introduce today, symbolize the connection between Japan and the West in the 16th and 17th century. At the same time, there are visual artifacts showing the indirect relationship between Japan and India in this period. First, let me talk about portrait of St. Francis Xavier. Christianity in Japan began with the arrival of Francis Xavier in 1549. At that time, it was the age of discovery when Portugal and Spain expanded their influence areas on a global scale. The influx of Western culture, including Christianity, into Japan was initially brought to by Portuguese ships sailing on routes through Europe, Africa, India, and Malacca. Oh, sorry. Since 1530, Portugal's base of operation in Asia had been located in Goa on the west coast of India. Since the arrival of the Jesuit Francis Xavier in 1542, the city of Goa has played an important role as a center for the Catholic missionary works all over Asia. After 2 years of mission in Japan, Xavier returned to Goa in February 1552. He left Goa to go to Malacca in April for the mission to China. Francis Xavier died in December 1552, just before his visit of China. He was canonized as a saint by the Pope in 1622 in recognition of his great religious activities during his lifetime, and the miracle that his body laid in the Basilica of Bob Jesus in Goa had never decomposed. In fact, even in this 21st century, we can see the mummified remains of Xavier in Goa. Christianity was forbidden with severe penalties in Japan since 1640, but there were many Japanese Christians who went into hiding and kept their faith. The news of Xavier's canonization, who had close ties to Japan, reached them in 1623 at the latest, and there was a widespread movement to secretly worship Xavier by painting his portrait. The portrait of Saint Francis Xavier, now in the collection of the Kobe City Museum, is thought to have been painted in Japan after 1623. The portrait of Xavier is based on the legendary episode from his stay in Goa in 1552. This anecdote was first published in Rome in 1594 in the Admirable Life of Saint Francis Xavier by Orazio Torrellino as a symbolic episode of Xavier's qualities as a religious man. The episode is as follows. One night, Xavier went out into the courtyard of the church in Goa to pray to God, and being touched by God's love, he fainted. It was as if his soul has left his body. When Xavier came to himself a short time later, he noticed that his chest was bright red and swollen. While taking off his clothes to cool his chest, he cried out, "It's enough, oh Lord, it's enough." In the Kobe portrait, angels soaring above symbolize God's love, overwhelming Xavier. The cross represents the crucifixion of Christ, as Xavier imagined it in his prayer. The image represents his red and swollen chest as an exposed burning heart, as his soul tries to leave his body. The words Xavier cried out are written in Latin on his portrait, Satis est Domine, Satis est. The portrait exemplifies the Christian way of the prayer that Xavier demonstrated in Goa. There was another Jesuit based in Goa after Francis Xavier, who played an important role in relation with Japan. He was Alessandro Barignano, the Jesuit visitor of a mission in Indies. He arrived in Goa in 1574. He was the leader of the Jesuits in Asia and visited Japan 3 times. He had a deep knowledge of Japanese politics and culture. And even powerful Japanese persons such as Oda Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi were impressed by him. Another representative works of Nanban art, I introduced the Nanban screen by canonizing, which shows the international exchange in Japan that Barignano supposed. In contrast to the portraits of Xavier painted with Western techniques, with this work is painted with traditional Japanese techniques and compositional method. The Japanese, the painter canonizing was a court painter for Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the most powerful man in Japan in the late 16th century. This artwork consists of a pair of folding screens nearly 4 meters wide. The left screen depicts the departure of Nanban ships from the foreign port town. Obviously, this is an exotic landscape, different from Japan or China. You may wonder which port town in which country this screen depicts. This could be Goa, and this could be Manila or Macau. However, even among Japanese researchers, no clear conclusion has been reached. The right screen depicts a Nanban ship entering a Japanese port town and loading its trade goods. The word Nanban meant European countries in Japan in the 16th and 17th century. The captain and a group of his men have landed from the ship, and Christian missionaries and believers welcomed them. It seems that this painting was produced from the late 1590s to late 1620s. It is also assumed that person who commissioned Canon Naiden to create these Nanban screens was influential person who was closely associated with Toyotomi Hideyoshi and who also understood Christianity. It is thought that these screens were intended to preserve the glamorous memories of trade between Japan and other countries during the days of Hideyoshi. The painting depicts more than 200 people, not many of them Japanese, but mostly European Caucasian and dark-skinned people from Asia and Africa. Needless to say, some of them might be from India, but it is impossible to distinguish with the birthplace of the people depicted here. The event depicted in this screen painting in the exchange between the Japan and foreign countries in the 1590s. By this time, monopoly on the trade with Japan by Goa-based Portuguese merchant and Jesuit missionary had ended. Spain was entering the Japanese trade from Mexico and Manila in Philippines, and Franciscan missionaries were also active. Therefore, not all of the people and animals depicted here are of India origin or via India. For example, the elephant on the left screen is thought to reflect of the memory of an elephant presented to Hideyoshi by Spanish mission in 1597. So there is no evidence that is an Indian elephant, and it can be an elephant from somewhere in the Southeast Asia. On the other hand, we can point out historical events in this screen painting that may be related to India. Perhaps the most significant event in international exchange during the Hideyoshi period was the return of the Tensho embassy to Europe in 1590. Four Japanese boy Christians sent by Alessandro Barignano to Rome in 1582 joined Barignano in Goa on their way back to Japan in 1587 and returned to Nagasaki in 1590 with a letter from the Viceroy of Portuguese India. They were granted an audience with Hideyoshi the next spring. Louis Floris, who was the Jesuit missionary, stayed in Japan at the time and wrote extensive records, reported that the procession of the Barignano's party included many Indian and Portuguese people, On its way to Hideyoshi Castle in Kyoto, citizens of Kyoto were really surprised because the procession was very brilliant and glamorous. This historical fact could be reflected in the image of the commander of Nanban ship and his party's splendid costume depicted in the center of the right screen of the Nanban screen. According to Louis Flores, Barina's party presented Hideyoshi with various gifts at this time. The most notable thing is a nerve horse. Such a magnificent horse entirely fascinated the Japanese samurai because they only had a small native breeds in Japan at that time. According to Louis Flores, the horse was pulled by 2 Indians and followed by a young Indian with his fine Indian harness. The horse image on this screen may have been reflection of the fact that he presented Hideyoshi with a nerve horse in 1591. Another notable motif related to India is the unusual figure on a palanquin depicted on the left side of the left screen. And an interesting theory is proposed by Katsushi Narasawa in Waseda University. During the audience in 1591, Barinano presented an Indian-style palanquins made in China to Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi liked this palanquin very much and was seen being carried by this vehicle to various official events. Katsushi Narasawa hypothesized that this figure being carried on the palanquin in the Nanban screens depicts Hideyoshi's dream conquering a foreign country and becoming the king of the Nanban world. Here is an artifact showing the situation in Goa in the late 16th century, a travelogue by Dutchman Nils Horten, who stayed in Goa from 1583 to 1589. This book contains a variety of illustrations about Goa, and it tells us regional customs similar to Nanban screens canonizing. The book contains several illustrations of Portuguese and Indian noble people carried in palanquin with large umbrella. I think there was a custom in Goa at that time for the people of high status to be carried around in this manner. And this custom may have been transmitted to Hideyoshi in Japan by Alessandro Barignano. Thank you for your attention. Please note that my English speaking ability is not high and it is difficult to provide immediate answer to a complex and specialized question. If you have any question, please send me an email to this address. Thank you so much. That's all.
Thank you very much, Tsukahara-san. I mean, I think, these screens really are such a wonderful pictorial depiction of history. I mean, really unmatched. And you see what you have extracted, the information that you've been able to extract from these screens of these examples of Namban art is really, I think, to all of us must be most, interesting and also an eye-opener. And to realize, I mean, that they were not only people, as you say, from India, but also Africa. And of course, we have heard of, the Mexican influence when you talk about Namban art. I'm going to ask, and I'm going to crave your indulgence to take 1 or 2 questions, put simply, and if you feel up to answering them, please do. So could I ask the audience for a couple of questions, please? Yes, please. Yes, please. Good.
I'm Rajiv Lochan, the former director of the National Gallery of Modern Art. Well, very exciting to see what you have, revealed, which I have been to Kobe Museum so many times, but I hadn't seen in person. I have very simple, straightforward question, and I'll send you a mail to that effect, and you can answer me. But for the benefit of those who are here, I'd just like to say, has a stylistic pictorial study of the synthesis between academic influences, Indian miniature, and Japanese approach towards image making been made? And if so, these insights would truly reveal the synthesis that we are all longing for. Thank you very much. I'll send you a mail to this effect in a more elaborate fashion, but I thought it was important to raise this question because content-wise is fine, but there is an element that is invariably forgotten, is the stylistic creative input, because it has the conceptualization and in terms of the format and a synthesis which talks about all these three sensibilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think as Tsukahara-san has just requested, you could send an email.
Yeah, that's what I'm
but I think what's interesting also for everybody is to know is where there were mutual influences. And one hears of Namban art in terms of, very traditional Japanese styles. But, invariably, there must have been other influences also. Particularly with a religious iconography that was taken by the
you
early
raised the
missionaries.
right question, because there are stylistic influences that one can see in the entirety of it. From the right side, the Portuguese influences of academicism of certain kind, it has traveled from Goa to the miniatures, and the Far Eastern sensibilities all amalgamating is my area of where it makes me inquisitive.
So I think that could be also a subject for our next conference, that we elaborate much more. That'd be wonderful. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Hello, I'm Padmini Balram, and I wanted to check about one thing is when like these screens are used in Japan for their houses, especially palaces and other places. So how these Namban art screens were used? Were they used only with Portuguese or somewhere else also?
Would you like to answer that, Tsukahara-san? I think she just wants to check with
I think this is a very difficult question to answer. But there is information about how use this Namban screen in Japan. I think this Namban screen I introduced in this conference have discovered in Nara City, in the old city in early 20th century. But we cannot have any information about how these screens is handed down to the modern times. I think this is very difficult answer to your question. So I'm so sorry.
Thank you, Tsukahara-san. Yeah, I'm sure that the provenance, but I mean, the fact that in Japan, everything is so well preserved, I think has kept this for us. And that itself is, however it sort of kept, but must have been probably certainly in the homes of people, the well-to-do, or probably, the nobility itself, that this was perhaps kept. Because I think the religion, on the religious side, there was probably a period of disconnect, therefore, this perhaps was kept as part of the secular art collection for a long time. Do you think that would be right?
Yeah. Sorry. I don't know about this issue. So sorry. Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
yeah.
We enjoyed this presentation. I'm sure you'll get some other questions also from among our audience emailed to you, and we'll make sure that is done. But thank you for this presentation. It's been really quite fascinating, and you really were the fact that this has a very clear connection also with Southeast Asia, which is part of this conference. That is, you had references to to Manila, the Spanish connection, which people don't talk about so much in India. We speak more about the Portuguese. And I think that also, in a way, was information that has been relatively new to us. So thank you very much. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much.
So could we give him another round?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.